Thank you guys for being here. My name is Bob Mitchell, and Larry Rambeaux is here with us as well. We're going to be doing this presentation today. You're not going to see Larry on video. He's just going to be a voice coming in. Are you with us, Larry?
Yes, I am.
He is. Okay, so that's not the voice of God. That's the voice of Larry Rambeaux joining us here today. But we thank you guys for being here on this webinar. At any point in time you have any questions, there's a team chat there. You can ask questions of Larry and I, and we'll do our best to answer that as we go along with this presentation. But as we stated, we're trying to get our fleets ready for the summer months. And with me being from Florida, we're very aware that summer lasts about 11 months out of the year, so it's a very important thing for us. But summer's here for us, and throughout the South, it's happening. For some of you guys, it's just starting to become summer, but we want to get our fleets prepared. And that, we're going to talk a little bit about what we need to do to get those things ready for lift gates, for reefers, trucks, and whatnot. So, so why summer is hard on electrical systems? Obviously, heat is an enemy of electrical components. A lot of applications, excessive heat is going to be a real problem. When it comes to batteries and things of that nature, heat is definitely an enemy there. So we have accelerated deterioration that happens in the battery system. I came from a battery background. I worked with Interstate for 5 years, and a lot of times people from up north would come down south and live the winter. They get back up north, and that first hard freeze they got, their batteries would go bad. And they'd always make the comment, well, it's these hard winters that do the damage. That's not the case. It's the heat that kills the batteries. The cold exposes that. That first cold snap usually exposes where the problems were. So the heat causes a lot more deterioration in batteries, excessive heat more so than excessive cold. So, and with that comes increased sulfation. It's the electrodes discharge. As a battery gets discharged, the sulfation happens. And we'll explain a little bit about that in the next slide. But then, there's stressed applications for reefers, obviously, lift gates and heaters during the warmer months. It's hard to keep a reefer cold when it's 98 degrees outside. So we talked about sulfation here and grid plate shedding. So these are some of the two things that degrade in a battery during the heat. When you have one of the main components to sulfation happening is when you keep a battery below 12.4. When it's below that rate for an extended period of time, sulfation is going to happen in the battery. Also, extreme cold and extreme heat will cause that sulfation, but you also get grid plate shedding that happens faster during warmer temperatures. As you can see from the diagram there on the left, some of that sludge sheds off of those plates and it builds up at the bottom of the battery, and then of course it creates a short circuit there, most likely at the time when you need it the most. So we're going to come to our first poll question here. So it's time for you guys to participate. So what conditions increase the sulfation process in batteries? So you have three choices here: extreme heat, extreme cold, or keeping batteries below 12.4 for extended periods of time. So you guys on this call, if you would, please make a choice. And I'll give you a few minutes to jump in on that. You still with us, Larry?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, jump in at any point in time.
Oh, I'm listening. You're doing a fabulous job.
Well, the audience is getting a real treat today because they can hear you but not see you. I know I use that.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And my apologies, everybody out there listening to us live today. I'm on the road and using a Wi-Fi signal at a customer's location, and it's just not a real solid connection, and it was lagging very bad when I had my camera on. So I figured I'd spare y'all seeing me anyway.
Well, we're glad to have you here. You got how many years of experience with Purkeys now, Larry?
I just had my 34th year anniversary.
34 years. You started when you were 10, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So 34 years. Larry is one of the best in the business, and I'm not just saying that because I work with him. So, all right. So we've got quite a few people answered the question here. Let's see how we did. All right. So some people said it's extreme cold. Some people, half of you said it's extreme heat. And a little less than half of you said it's keeping batteries below 12.4. Well, congratulations. Sulfation is increased in all three of those applications. So
Everyone's a winner.
everybody wins. You all get a star. So great job. Yeah, all those things increase sulfation. So we didn't talk about the cold, but you were smart enough to get that as well. So the big key there, I believe, is the 12.4 volts for extended period of time. And we're going to talk about ways that we can offset that a little later in the slide. But yeah, the biggest issue with all equipment, no matter the season, is keeping the batteries fully charged. Keep a battery at 12.9. It's just not going to sulfate nearly as much in the heat or in the cold. If it's got a good steady state of charge, 13.2, whatever it may be, keeping that battery topped off at all times is going to be the best weapon against sulfation. So, we're talking about charging system issues by equipment. We've got a number of people on this call with different backgrounds, different equipment that they're using. So we're going to kind of go through what some of those issues are. But obviously with tractor trailers, you have idle restrictions that are going to affect some of those charging issues with how a battery charges. You got higher cab loads. Today's tractor trailer microwaves and popcorn poppers and CPAC machines and whatever it may be, there's a ton of different things inside that tractor that's going to be pulling current and drawing off those batteries. And there again, during warmer temperatures, that's going to affect it a little bit more.
Yeah, and seeing more and more fleets running EPUs or battery-powered, air conditioning systems. Those are a healthy load, and it's going to pull those batteries down.
Sure. Yeah. So, lift gates, they're going to be affected by the heat as well. One of the biggest reasons is because a lot of our beverage companies, beer companies, soda companies are all running lift gates, and they run during the summer more so than during the winter. Getting out to the beach and running those, getting everyone their refreshments, adult or otherwise. That's going to just a lot more load. It's their busy season, So warmer temperatures are going to affect the many more up and downs that they're going to do, and it's going to affect the batteries again as well. Those liftgate batteries sitting under there. Reefers, of course, they've got to keep things cold, and it's simple to say it's hard to keep things cold in hot temperatures. So a reefer going through Phoenix is going to be having to do a little bit more of a load. Where the battery's located in the reefer, it's a tight spot in there, and you have a lot of electronics, a lot of things that are producing heat. So that box is going to be extremely tight and extremely hot. So we're concentrating on keeping those reefer batteries in good shape as well. And then heaters. The heaters just don't get as much use during the summertime because they don't need to. They don't need to have to keep some of our trailers heated as well. And we have a few trailers that, they have to keep things from getting frozen. Paint companies and things of that nature, people that are carrying different things that they can't allow it to drop below a certain temperature. That's why the heaters are there, but they obviously don't get used as much. And all of these have parasitic loads. All these trailers and tractors have GPS and all these different things that are tracking things on the trailer, tracking things on the truck that are drawing power. They're all drawing amps. So we're going to talk about 3 steps for you to get your tractors, trailers, heaters, reefers, or whatever it may be, ready for the summer. And I believe I'm going to hand this to Mr. Rambeaux.
All righty. Thank you, Bob. And a great lead into all this. Again, people that know me have been around forever. When I first started at Purkeys, our core business, we were a starter and alternate manufacturer. And we were a battery distributor. So a lot of my time was training on the cranking and charging systems of trucks. Important thing we can do to keep our vehicles ready and make sure they're ready to go in the summer. There's all kinds of new battery testers and systems you can buy to make a lot of the preventive maintenance much faster. I am still very much old school, and I think twice a year you still got to do the old school basics, and that starts with the batteries. that whenever we have an electrical problem, we all say, hey, we're going to do the 1, 2, 3 approach. He goes, well, we're going to learn about numbers? No. Before you can work on 2 or 3, the first thing we got to work on is number 1, which is the batteries. They're the heart of the electrical system. If the batteries aren't right, nothing's going to be right. You can't test cables, you can't test alternator, nothing until you know that battery pack is right. So first thing, whether it's a liftgate, a reefer, a truck, whatever it is, you got to make sure your batteries are high enough state of charge to even start. If they're low, doesn't mean they're bad, but you can't do a proper test of the batteries. Now, again, a lot of electronic testers will allow you to test batteries in a somewhat discharged condition. But even if they were able to test the batteries, it's not going to let you go any further in testing cables or anything. So you're going to have to properly charge those batteries before you go any further, or you're going to have to replace them. Again, one of the biggest things I want to stress is just because they're discharged, it doesn't mean they're bad. Run them through a recharge program or whatever. But they got to be right before you can do anything else. And part of that is, again, we made sure the open circuit voltage was high enough to do the test. We got to take all the cables off. Again, there's electronic testers that will allow you to do pack tests, which is great, but I'm still going to say twice a year, which we always do this one as our get ready for summer presentation, and we always do one of fall, get ready for winter. Same rules apply. We want to take everything apart because not only we want to test the batteries individually, but we also want to make sure everything is clean. But you see in the slide here is a little wire brush that goes on the end of a drill. They make a couple different ones. One of them's got a recessed hole like you see here. Does a great job. It goes over that stud and allows you to clean the lead pad on a typical flooded cell battery. Or if we talk about the AGM batteries like we see here, that may be a brass contact. But that is your electrical contact. The stainless steel threads are only there to hold the cable down. So we got to make sure that's all cleaned up, and we're going to get a good connection. So the next thing, you got to use adapters. There's lead adapters. Some OEM or battery manufacturers, prefer to use brass adapters. But no matter what, all we're trying to do is make sure we're getting electrical connection down on that pad at the bottom. You got to test the batteries. And we could have an 8-hour presentation on all the different, battery testers and types of testers, whether it's only electronic, if it's a resistive load, it's a carbon pile. But make sure you're properly trained on your piece of equipment. And I always, call out shop managers that, hey, you did your job. You went and got your people a good piece of equipment. If you don't train them how to properly use it and all the rights and wrongs and everything with that piece of equipment, you haven't done your job, in my opinion. They got to be properly trained because there's all kinds of little nuances with the different types of testers. But you're going to follow that tester's instructions. Whether you're going to do a load test, well, obviously you're going to do a load test, but put in the right CCA of the battery. Make sure you put in the right specs. When we say CCA, that's generally the default for ratings on batteries. Depending upon your tester, it's going to ask you what type of battery. You're going to use the CA rating, CCA rating, ask you for temperature. Many different things that tester uses to make sure you're doing a fair test on it. A battery is not a battery. Once you go through your results, you got to separate them. Hey, good batteries, if they meet all your fleet's criteria, they can stay in. You can move forward. If they don't meet your criteria, whether they tested their defective battery, or, hey, these are some oddball batteries we picked up on the road. They're not our normal batteries. We don't know, what kind of life we're going to get at them. We're definitely not going to get warranty because, we bought them somewhere, 1,000 miles away. You may go ahead and pull those batteries, get them out of the truck. Next thing is we're going to, once our battery pack is good, we're going to.
I was going to interrupt you there. I know you talked about doing a battery program for batteries when they pull batteries out. How big a fan are you of fleets having their own battery program, and any suggestions there?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of battery recharge programs. Most fleets throw away a ton of money in batteries simply because batteries are discharged. And I ask them at times, well, why don't you do recharge? Well, we tried it way back when and didn't have good luck with it. And if, battery recharge is probably one of the best examples of too many cooks spoil the stew. that if you have one person in charge of it and you put in the right procedures, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a recharge battery. You're going to look at age, condition, testing, all those things. But yeah, you can save yourself a ton of money by having a good recharge program. If you don't do it properly, though, it can cost you a lot of money. So you either got to, say, hey, we're going to do it properly, or no, we're not going to do it at all.
And get one guy in charge of it and have him run it then, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much time. That with the modern battery chargers, they're completely automatic. You hook a battery up to it. You look over there. If the light turns green, you can take it off. Doesn't mean it's a good battery, but at least took a charge. But most of the time, the equipment's doing all the work for you.
Yeah.
That even a fairly large fleet, somebody running a recharge program may spend an hour on average a day. But yeah, so went through the batteries. The next thing we would check, we say number 2, is we're going to do a voltage drop on our cables. Again, doesn't matter if this is a truck, a reefer, a liftgate, whatever. We still have a source of energy that has to get to the device. Testing the cranking cables. This goes back to TMC RP 129, people that are familiar with Technology and Maintenance Council. That this spec has been around forever, but it is a standard spec of you're allowed 0.5 volt at 500 amps on your cranking cables from the batteries to the starter. Again, modern equipment does a great job very quickly of doing this test. If it fails, again, modern equipment is going to come back and tell you how much you have on the positive side, how much on the ground side. So if you do fail, hey, I got twice as much on the positive as I do the ground. I'm going to go through, clean up all my positive, put it back together, retest it. And trying to stay at the 30,000 foot on some of this. Again, you got to be careful getting me talking. I can talk for hours. But we go through the cranking cables first, because pretty much every manufacturer runs cables from the batteries to the starter, then from the starter to the alternator. So if we know our cranking cables are good, we move on to the charging cables and do the same thing. The difference here, again, going back to TMC RP 129, is you're allowed 0.5 volt at rated output of that alternator. A couple different ways, whether it's a single battery pack or split battery pack, and there's other webinars we've done that are more in details on this. Or if you have questions, again, don't hesitate to reach out. But this is, something I've probably done this presentation 1,000 times. Still very important, even though we don't do starters and alternators. A lot of our products still depend on all this stuff being right. I got to tech, or are you going to take this one, Bob?
Go ahead.
I'll take it. And unless you have really short-term memory, we should be able to get this one pretty good. What is the spec for TMC RP 129 for cranking cables? 0.5 volt while cranking for A. B, 0.25 volts per cable at 500 amps. C, 0.5 volt total at 500 amps. Or D, 1 volt at 500 amps.
I think I know the answer to this. I got this one.
And again, just click or hover over whichever letter A, B, C, or D you think it is and click. Give you all just a little bit more. We can kind of see the percentage of people responding. So.
And we did get a question about the ideal recharge program. Maybe we want to address that again at the end, Larry. Does that sound good?
Yeah, we'll save that for a good follow-up and go in more detail.
Sure.
All right. We got 50% of the response, so we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. The answer is yes, 0.5 volt at 500 amps. Probably, the next most common answered one, or most common answer was 0.5 volt at cranking. Yes, 0.5 volt, but the problem is while cranking, we have no idea how many amps that starter's pulling, so it's not a fair test. If you have listen to our multimeter presentation, we talk about that in detail. We have no idea how many amps that starter's pulled. So if we had 1 volt, 2 volts, whatever, we don't know because it's not a fair test because we don't know what that current is. So yes, the correct answer is half a volt at 500 amps.
And that is
turn it back over to Bob.
RP 129.
129.
Yeah, there we go. So what else can we do to ensure a trouble-free summer? Obviously, wear sunblock is a big thing. But as far as your equipment goes, reviewing the specs for your equipment and your replacement equipment. Obviously, your starters, your alternators, your batteries, are they the spec that you're using? And we'll kind of talk about that in detail, but your fleet should have an idea or should have a spec on each of those components that you want to make sure you're running. So when it comes to batteries, one of the big things we have nowadays is it flooded or is it AGM? A lot of fleets are running AGM. I'm a fan of the AGM technology. You get a lot more battery life out of it and don't have some of the issues. Vibration issues are a big one when it comes to those plates that we talked about in a tractor trailer that's kind of moving around on the road all the time. AGM just has, those plates just don't break loose because they're in that absorbed glass mat material. So there's no vibration issues when it comes to AGM. Whereas in a sealed lead acid or flooded cell battery, you're going to get that fluid sloshing around and could cause problems. So that's my 2 cents when it comes to batteries. But the correct CCA is a big deal for fleets because so many times people think, oh, it's 1,000 cold cranking amps. This is going to be a better battery for us. And that's not always the case. The correct CCA for the application is going to serve you a lot better. When you get into 1,000 cold cranking amps, what you're doing is you're putting more lead into that battery, and thus you're reducing if it's a sealed lead, it's a flooded cell battery, a sealed lead acid battery, reducing the fluid in there. So it's going to not be able to keep cool as well. So a 750 cold cranking amp is going to have a little less lead, but a little bit more fluid. It's going to keep cool a little bit better. And it's going to have what you need there. Isn't that correct, Larry? Am I speaking correctly on that? Got anything to add to that?
Yes. It all comes down to having the right ratio of, plate material and electrolyte. And when you start going for high CCAs, you throw that ratio off and also how those plates are constructed. And you're 100% right that everybody looks at batteries and they want big CCA. And until you have a fleet of, 15-to-1 compression, dragsters or a whole bunch of old, cat dozers, CCA is not the answer. You need to make sure you have enough to meet your requirements. But the more important thing is the reserve capacity. One is going to be able to cycle much better and have a much longer cycle life.
Yeah. And of course, warranty there, we talked about, some batteries are not performing, you pull them out. What's the warranty on that? Obviously, you can save a lot on your fleet by having the proper warranty. And, just because that little sticker says it's a year old, it may not have got installed, may only be 9 months old. You still have some warranty, able to get some money back on those. So understanding that's going to be a big money saver for your fleets.
And one thing I highly recommend on batteries especially is invest in some paint pens for your shops. Right on the side of those batteries when you put them in service. That's when your warranty ought to start.
Then getting into your alternators, making sure that they're, again, the right alternator is putting out for your fleet what you want it to, that's having the correct kilowatt rating for it. Having an underpowered or even an overpowered alternator is going to cause problems for your battery and for your electrical system. Understanding gear reduction on that, and what your warranty is on your alternators, having a good quality alternator, but having them be able to stand behind it as well. That's going to be a key there. And then of course your starters as well. Being able, whether you go with a brush or brushless design, the output that you're putting out, like Larry just talked about, the cables in the RP 129, you don't know what that starter's putting out when you're cranking. So being able to have that right the right starter that's pushing the amps out to start the tractor is going to be a key point there. Remote sense option, and I'm sorry, Larry, can Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, remote sense is, on heavy duty equipment, everything has always been flat compensated. When I say flat compensated, that alternator regulates at 14 volts no matter what. Doesn't matter if it's 0 degrees or 100 degrees. They regulate basically at 14 volts. What remote sense does is actually back up 1 second. They regulate based on what they see at the output terminal of the alternator. With remote sense, we can actually move that voltage sense all the way to the batteries, or some cases, some of the OEMs run it to the starter because, again, they know they're going to pick up those big cables from the starter back to the batteries. But the whole idea is get a more accurate voltage reading at the batteries so they can raise or lower that voltage regulator to make sure they're charging the batteries correctly. Sure. That, as cables degrade and everything, that remote sense can help offset or make that voltage drop a little bit more forgiving. In a perfect world scenario, if everybody made their trucks properly and they're all built properly, you wouldn't really need remote sense. But as there are issues, that remote sense can really help a fleet.
Sure. And some of these manufacturers don't get it right, believe it or not. But getting into when they don't get it right, you make sure you want to have a good warranty policy, procedure with that, and be able to have those things taken care of. Again, saving your fleet a lot of dollars when things do go wrong, and obviously things do go wrong. So we like to talk about inverters for tractors. Again, we have a lot of drivers that are putting a lot of hotel loads, plugging a lot of different things into their tractors when they're going down the road, and we want to make things as comfortable and as good for the drivers as we possibly can, and to optimize their comfort level, to optimize how they perform. But that is a heavy load on the heavy load on the battery, heavy load on the electrical system. So we have inverters that have low voltage disconnect so that we're not taxing the batteries too much, because again, we don't want a guy to run a popcorn popper and then not get his vehicle to start. So we have some of those technologies built in when it comes to that. So having the correct wattage for the driver's needs when whatever the systems they're running inside the tractor, making sure that we have the right size inverter for them. A modified or pure sine wave is a big piece of that inverter as well, especially when it comes to CPAP machines. Keeping a modified sine wave would cut out at some point in time, and they've had some issues with CPAP as far as that goes, whereas the pure sine wave is a much more fluid, much more reliable wave to keep those CPAP machines running. And then, of course, the low
just cleaner power.
Cleaner power. That's what I was looking. I was struggling to find that, but yeah, cleaner power. That's exactly right. And the low voltage shuts down, as I just mentioned before, when we, drivers aren't the best about going, hey, how many amps am I pulling with all this equipment that I have? That inverter is able to do that for them and go, okay, we've gone too far. We're not going to be able to start. Let's go ahead and cut these systems off so that our main system can start back up. So shore power has been a big piece for us, and we have a product called SafeFix that we're using for our shore power. But keeping your vehicles plugged in when you're able to plug them in, again, we're talking about topping off batteries at any point in time. I always look at shore power kind of like I look at my iPhone when I get in my car. I plug it in because I want to keep my phone topped off, because when I'm out of the car, I can't, if it goes bad, then I'm dead without my phone. So a lot of companies now are having plug-ins available for the tractors to keep those batteries topped off, opportunity charging when they're parked, that sort of thing. So shore power is just offering that optimum efficiency. Now, the downside of that is that drivers do have to plug in. We have to, you have to maybe do a little bit more training for proper charging for these applications, because drivers may or may not plug in. And we're talking about a lot of voltage too. When we're talking shore power, we're talking about 480 volts. We certainly don't want mistakes being made at that high voltage. So having a safe way for drivers to plug in and be comfortable plugging into that high voltage is going to be a key for that. Solar is one of my favorite things to talk about. Again, I live in Florida. We get a lot of sun, but even in even up north in northern climates, you're still able to optimize the power of the sun. Having a temporary use panel like we have here, this is just a little solar dart, solar dash is what we call it. Put it in the dash. If that vehicle is going to be sitting for 30 days for a repair, or the guy's on vacation, whatever it may be, putting that solar panel in, plugs into the cigarette lighter. It keeps amperage going to the batteries, offsets the amperage being taken out of the batteries by GPS or whatever other loads they have there. So you're keeping that battery above the state of 12.4, which again, sulfation happens at 12.4 over extended periods of time. That solar panel is going to offset that and keep those batteries topped off. We also do solar panels for the top of lift gates. For the liftgate batteries, we have solar panels for the top of tractors, so that it's getting that charging from the sun as well. And solar panels just has become a much more viable solution over the past 10 years. Solar's been around for a long time, but it hasn't optimized itself. It hasn't, the solar cells weren't efficient. In the last 10 years, so they're really getting more and more efficient, to whereas they are producing bang for the buck. They are being a fiscal good investment. So I've been doing a ton of solar business and had really good success with that. So if you haven't discussed solar, it is a great way to keep batteries topped off at a pretty minimal charge, a pretty minimal financial charge, but a nice charge for your batteries. So talking about the tractor, this is one of our tractors. Actually, Larry and I did this ourselves. Having this on top of the tractor piece here, obviously it's going to catch a lot of sun and keep those starter batteries and hotel batteries topped off just going down the road. Here's some of our liftgate batteries that we talked about. It's a little 3-panel system that we have here, good for reefers or heaters, and pipes right down to the liftgate batteries. Keeping those batteries topped off at all times. Location, you can kind of locate these towards the front or the rear of the liftgate trailer, or in the middle, but when you're talking about the middle, you have to run a lot more different wire. Does it take some hits from obstructions and things like that? Yes, that happens sometimes, obviously in the imperfect world. But what's good about today's solar versus yesterday's solar, if you took a hit, you'd lose half or 3/4 of that solar panel. But if you take a little tree hit on one of these solar panels, you're still going to get 95, 96% efficiency out of that solar panel, again, depending on how big a hit it is. So, again, they're flexible and easy to mount. As you saw, and I'll go back to this photo. This cowl is not completely flat. So we're able to mount that flexible solar panel in different locations. So that makes it easy to use that way. So, okay. Anything to add about solar, Larry? Did I miss something?
One other thing that's kind of a new market with it, and one thing I want to go back to is you talk about the difference that's, how much solar is taken off. 20 years ago, someone would have thought or told me we were going to sell solar. You're crazy. We'll never put that stuff on trucks. And now it's probably 1/3 of our business.
Yeah.
But a new market that we've done a lot more with is people made our TAPS product, where we call it a TAPS for trailer auxiliary to charge pallet jacks, which we really didn't talk about this in the presentation. But the same thing is they get used a lot more. You get into talk about the beverage industry. The more pallets are delivering, the more they're going to use that pallet jack to deliver that product. So a lot of people use our TAPS to charge it, in the trailer. We go one step further, and we can actually pick that power up off the liftgate batteries and use solar in conjunction to help keep liftgate batteries charged, which in turn keeps the pallet jacks charged. So I've got a lot of customers that they don't even take the pallet jacks out of trailers anymore, unless it's, at the dock being actively loaded or that pallet jack is due for a PM. They never leave the trailer. So Solar's done some pretty neat things that never would have thought we'd be able to do years ago.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. It definitely is something one of the first things when I go in to talk to a customer, what are you doing on solar? Because it's effective now. So we're going to come into
the other
one
thing
of our.
too is,
Go ahead.
one thing I don't want to forget is there's all kinds of sustainability movements out there for fleets to be green, and not even just a fleet, just businesses as a whole. And solar will qualify for a lot of that. So there's actually some different grant program stuff that will pay for a lot of the solar if you decide to use it in your fleet.
That's exactly right. Yeah, definitely. So that gets us into our last poll question. This is which one is not one of the benefits a fleet could see from using solar? So which one of these is not a benefit? So reduced idle time, improved fuel, B, improved fuel economy, C, improved electrical system component life, and D, improved tire life. So which of these do you think is not a benefit of solar? And a lot of people were answering this one because I had the slide up. So we'll just go ahead and get right to it. And I didn't cover a lot of these, but let's see if we got it right. Improved tire life is correct. That is the one thing that we can't say that solar panel does for us. We can't get you better life out of a tire, but it does reduce the idle time. Actually, I didn't discuss that when it came to the trailers, but as they idle, keeping that battery topped off means that the batteries are going to stay fuller, and it's going to the idle time is going to be less. So fuel economy, it can affect fuel economy as well. We've seen studies where they have saved gallons. There again, because they're not idling, the batteries are running and the solar's feeding the batteries.
Good. And you get into the EPU applications that, if you got an EPU that's pulling, we'll say just for round numbers, 30 amps, and you put, a couple of solar panels on it, they're putting out 10. Well, now the net is only 20. Well, you just increased all your time without the engine. Basically you've added 50% to it.
That's right. So in improved electrical system component life, I didn't cover this piece either, but as the battery stays at a better state of charge, it means that starter doesn't have to jump as many amps. That means that alternator doesn't have to work as hard. So the electrical components are running better because the battery's staying at a full state of charge due to that solar. So better starters, better alternators, the whole electrical system benefits.
Switches, solenoids.
Yes, and solenoid. That's exactly right. Yep. So all the way around wins there. So I cut into your piece a little bit there, Larry, but that's because I missed my piece a little bit. So I'm going to let you take over from there.
All righty. We kind of wrap it up. And we are getting in the home stretch. The only thing I do ask everybody is please don't drop off yet. Because we always have survey questions at the end. Plus, we're going to have some Q&A. We have a good question somebody proposed. But I think it was last month we did a webinar on this poll of it. Because, what else could we do? What are some other ideas? Probably one of the biggest things that fleets really miss out on to improve their reliability and everything is making sure we educate drivers. Now, we talk about some of our charging systems, whether it's lift gates or whatever, but most products out there have some sort of indicator light on it. Say, hey, it's working good, it's not working, there's faults or whatever. When's the last time we ever spent time to actually educate those drivers? Says, hey, before this trailer leaves, are the batteries at a minimum state of charge? So whether it's, like one of our charging systems or solar or whatever, there is some sort of lights that we have to educate drivers. Hey, before you leave, go out there and is this light, solid green, or is it blinking green, or does it actually have a voltmeter on it? Something. Are you leaving in a good state of charge? When they, drivers I know can always be kind of a good and a bad. They're, at times we say they're dumb when you want them smart, smart when you want them dumb, but they're the ones that are behind the wheel of that truck every day. So if they start seeing something, hey, I used to be able to run my, CPAP for 8 hours, and now at 5 hours my truck has to start. Well, what changed? It could simply be that you cycle those batteries, they've lost capacity. So we do have to make sure drivers understand what all these different systems do. and, any type of indicators or whatever that are on the truck, trailer, reefer, hey, their job, they're the ones that see it every day. Take a look. If something's not right, hey, I got a fleet I'm working with right now that went and looked at some of their trailers, and they've got liftgate trailers that are sitting at 8 to 10 volts that, those things are going to have a breakdown if they leave the yard. But right now, the drivers don't have a way to know the state of the charge of those vehicles or liftgate batteries before they leave the yard. So they didn't do anything wrong. Nobody's told them what to look for to make sure that everything's good.
Yeah, just different. 3 weeks ago at one of the shops I was in, says, "Hey, what do these lights do on this liftgate charging system?" And what's basic to me or basic to somebody else isn't necessarily basic to a driver. So being able to train those people, that's a great point.
Oh, and we do actually at the Purkeys office, that our guys in receiving, any of the LTLs that, run our products, we'll ask the drivers, hey, do you know what that thing does? Nope, nobody ever told me. So we know what happens everywhere with the fleets that have, ran our products for years. So we have shot a couple of videos on that. We actually did one special for one fleet, but working on some others, but kind of gives a breakdown of, hey, this is what the lights should do when you start the truck. This is what they should do, and we can do those for other people. Or maybe we host a webinar for drivers if our audience, says that, hey, that's something that would be of help to you. But different power solutions, hey, what keeps y'all up at night? We don't want these to ever sound too salesy, but if there's something we can help you with, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Or again, for suggestions on other webinars and videos and stuff in the future. So kind of takeaways, you don't really need us to read all these, but why do we spend the time on this? Again, we're getting ready to go into the heat of summer. Need to address them now before we have problems down the road. Look at your specs. Are you specing the right battery? Are you specing the right alternator, the right starter? One of the things pretty cool, and again, we used to do starters and alternators, and we haven't for years, but I still talk to a lot of the alternator starter reps out there, and it's amazing some of the things they've learned with as much energy as the world's devoting to EV. Some of the things that they've learned that makes alternators a lot more efficient, and trying to find that right alternator that, hey, I need a bigger alternator. Yeah, but that alternator is only going to ever give you that kind of output at an engine speed you're never going to maintain. You're better off to buy this middle of the road amperage alternator because the sweet spot's right where your truck operates. So there's some pretty neat things out there that can help you across the board. So yeah, follow these, simple rules, and, I really think it will have some huge paybacks for you. Again, one of the biggest ones I'll go back to is the 1, 2, 3 training. Is fleets do not spend the time doing the basics anymore. They buy batteries that have maintenance free across the top, and they think they don't ever have to touch them. And that is definitely not the case. So, all right, we're going to go to a couple Q&As we had. One was, what's an ideal recharge program look like? How much time you got? I could talk about this for an hour. But one of the biggest things, again, as Bob mentioned earlier too, is one person. And if you're a big enough shop or whatever, you may have to do that one person per shift. But for the most part, it's one person's going to be your guru for your recharge program. Everybody else, any technician, if they pull a battery out of a vehicle, again, whether it's reefer, truck, liftgate, whatever, and it needs to go through the program. Now, if it's got a hole in the side, you mark it, damage, that's a scrap battery. But anything else you want to go through and put them on one pallet so that whoever your guru is, that's where they start the next day. They're going to go through any batteries that are taken out of the vehicle. They're going to look at them. Most of the electronic testers now have some way to print off your test results. Technicians should put it with that battery. They can look at it and say, hey, appears the technician did everything right. They put the right CCA in and everything. And we know it's a bad battery. I don't need to do anything with it. I'm going to check it for warranty. If it is within warranty spec, it's going to go on the warranty pile. If it's anything else, it's going to go on my scrap pile. And again, I don't want to spend, the whole hour talking about this, but as those batteries go through the different stages, and I've got a PowerPoint, if you'd like me to, I can share it with you if you send in a comment for the person that posted this question or anyone else that wants it. But every station of that recharge program should either have a shelf or a pallet, depending upon, again, how big the fleet is. That, here's where they start. It's a sorting, it's a charging, it's a 24-hour rest, it's a resorting, and it's warranty or scrap. The other thing too is if you go through a bunch of batteries and say, hey, these aren't really the best battery anymore, but it's still a good battery, or it's some odd brand that you acquired on the road somewhere, that is a very good trade truck battery. I mean, how many fleets in America have trade trucks sitting out in the backyard that sit for 6 months? When someone finally gets them or comes to pick them up, you got to put batteries in them. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Nobody's going to pay you more for that trade truck just because you put new batteries in it now. So those batteries have a good place too.
And one of the things we didn't talk about was keeping battery packs all similar in the same age group and the same type of batteries.
And that's, again, 100% goes in that battery program. And just some policies. My humble opinion on batteries, and some fleets will disagree with this, I never recommend changing one battery in a vehicle. Whether it's a liftgate, you got 2 batteries, your truck, and you got 4, never will I tell somebody to change one battery because you'll wind up with a pup from every dog in that battery box, and you'll constantly be in there messing with it. So take them all out, run them all through your recharge program. 3 of them, 2 of them, whatever, wind up good. You're going to match it up with other good recharge batteries and make a new pack.
Yeah.
Because next week you're going to have another truck that has, discharge batteries. Hey, here's 4, batteries like you said, Bob, that are, same manufacturer. They're within, X amount of months. They're within X amount of CCAs. They're the same manufacturer. It is a good used pack. All right. Any other questions? And there was a comment earlier. I don't know if you saw that, Bob, you want to address?
I mixed up the starters and the alternator.
Yeah, and I caught it too. But someone made a comment. And again, this is going to be a recorded presentation, so I just did want to at least address it. Bob intermixed starter and alternator there a couple of times, but
I got a little nervous. Got a little nervous there.
Just because you couldn't see my smiling face to cheer you on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or I didn't see you going, no, that's not it. So. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. That's part of it. Keeps people on their toes, and obviously one person at least caught it.
Somebody was, yeah, definitely.
Because everybody that attends this live today, there will be a recorded link that you'll be sent tomorrow, so you can go back through it. Any other questions anybody wants to submit? And before I let you go, too, do want to remember there is some survey questions. We do these, we try to make these not very salesy at all. So if you have suggestions on something, we try to do one. For the most part, we have the next year lined out already on the calendar for what we're going to cover. But if someone has, hey, I'd love it if you'd cover this, or we sure could use a little bit more information on, this widget or whatever, or how to troubleshoot something. Please put it in the comment section, or send Bob or I or Celia even an email of things you'd like for us to do to help you.
Yes, sir.
On the one we did, I don't know if Celia mentioned it when we started, but in the reference materials there should be a link to the driver education one that I talked about earlier. Things that we can do to help make drivers more aware of the equipment they are taking care of. All righty. If not, I am going to thank you all for attending today. Greatly appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to seeing you all next month. And some of you, I'm sure I'll see you in person sooner or later.
Well, thank you very much, guys.